I'm going to do a quick demonstration for making Marias using glass tubing. And right now I'm in a kind of weird spot because I'm testing out my new camera. It's a portable, very small, compact camera that you can mount onto anything. Right now I've got it mounted to the blast shield on my Marver. Uh, for me right now, the only real issue with this camera is it's blocking my view. I'm actually looking at the display of the camera as much as I am at the glass itself. So it's going to take me a little while to get used to that, but it's worth it. You can't see my hands, but I'm rotating my hands as I'm softening the glass. So we go into the flame, and gently push, rotate, push. In this case, I am heating the glass, then I come out of the flame and begin to push. With more experience, you can shape the glass in the flame, but typically when I do it, it gets distorted. So for me, what I like to do is go a little bit slower, where I heat the glass, rotating in the flame, then come out and then push. And so you can see I've got 3 Marias. They're all on top of each other, and the overall piece of glass is straight. Now, this section of Marias is actually very useful because I can turn this into a hose adapter. If I cut here and then fuse over here, it's basically what we use in chemistry to attach Tygon tubing or other types of hose to glassware. The other thing about this drill of making the Maria, even if you don't want to make a hose adapter or some other specific piece of equipment, practicing making Marias is one of the most fundamental drills in glass blowing or lamp working. And I know this because when I started trying this in 2017, after I got some training in Salem, New Jersey, at the Salem Community College, my Marias were terrible. My Marias were absolutely embarrassing, and it's because I didn't have good control. And so after a few years of practicing lamp working, I am less terrible than I used to be. Now, in this case, again, for this particular demonstration, I'm making the Marias right on top of each other, and I'm not really going to a great amount of length to really compress them into like a flat disc, because again, for a hose adapter, this is actually ideal. Okay. Now, basically what I have right now are 2 hose adapters. I could cut them off and then fuse them onto whatever I'm working on. But for this particular exercise, again, of just practicing making the Marias, notice that I have 6 Marias, and the glass tubing, this is 10 millimeter tubing, by the way, standard wall. Notice that the glass tubing is still straight. And that's because as I make these Marias, my hands are rotating together, and then when I come out, I push evenly on both sides. I'm going to make this Maria badly, as bad as my grammar. And the way I'm going to do it, so I'm going to get this nice and hot, then I'm going to stop, and I'm going to push as best I can to keep it centered. So I'm actually going to try and keep everything centered, but I'm not going to rotate. So I stop and I'm pushing, and I'm using my eyeballs to center it. And from this perspective, it looks halfway decent, but look when I rotate it. Okay? You can see I'm off center. And I wasn't cheating. I was actually trying to make this Maria perfect. But because I stopped rotating and just pushed, it's off center. Okay? It's not off by a tremendous amount. I've done far worse, but right now it's clear that I've put a wobble, I've put a little bit of non-uniformity into this glass tubing, because as I rotate it, I can feel it. So I could try and repair this. The only problem is, let's see if I can get it back on center. Once you get off center like this, it usually just gets worse. So warming this up, rotating. There we go. And so because I rotated and pushed, I brought it back on center. It's not absolutely perfect, but it's far better than it was before. So again, making Marias in tubing or rod is an absolutely critical skill to have, because if your Marias are bad, well, that means you're having difficulty controlling your rotations. So if you want to learn lamp working, you want to learn scientific glass blowing, take the time to practice making Marias, and it will be frustrating at first. Your Marias will look terrible. I don't have any examples of my old stuff. I should find those, but many of the Marias, when I first started out, they were very, very badly off center. Here's a piece of scrap glass. Let me just show you what I mean. Okay. So you take it, you push it, and you get like that. You know, again, I stopped. I didn't rotate, and that's what happens. So I think with the 7mm rod, you get a little bit more forgiveness the thicker the rod is. So again, the Maria is an excellent learning exercise. So I'll go ahead and make one more right here. And what I'm going to do on this one, just to kind of finish this glass rod, is I'm going to heat a large section of glass, which you're really not supposed to do for the Maria, and I'm going to push it much harder than I normally would, just to kind of show you what you can make as far as these structures are concerned. There we go. You can see it's a disc, but it's got a little bit of wobble to it. And the reason why is I heated up a little bit too much glass, but I didn't heat it up uniformly enough, and I pushed really aggressively. So it's a disc, but it's not perfect. So this is the kind of thing that you don't want to do what I just did. In other words, you don't want to just dive in there and do it too quickly as you're learning. You want to take the time and practice this correctly, get a really good feeling for the glass, of how much to heat and how hard to push it. And without a doubt, your hand rotation, that is the skill you need to develop. So let's see if I can do that larger disc a little bit better. So you can see how floppy it's getting on me. Pushing, rotating, pushing and rotating. So I'm going to go back in a second time. And so now I've got a disc, and I could keep going to make it more narrow by trying to focus the heat right on the disc itself. I'm working further away from the torch. give me a little bit more time. And so there we go. So if you compare this Maria, right, I'll rotate it around. You can see it's a narrow disc, but it's got a lot of wobble to it. It's not perfectly centered. Whereas this, also a very narrow Maria, but it's a lot better as far as the centering. And that's because I heated it up, compressed it, went back in 2 more times, and did it right. So you might, like I said, have a tendency to want to muscle the glass to get it hot and then just really push it hard. That's not going to work out for you. You're going to end up with glass that has a lot of non-uniformity in it. But if you heat it up, get it uniform, compress it, get it to a shape, reheat it, compress it, and keep doing that till you're happy, you'll get much better results. So again, we look at this Maria versus this one as far as, again, relative uniformity. This is a commercial piece of scientific glassware. It's a vacuum trap, which basically is a large bubbler. And what I want to show you right here, this is a hose adapter. It's got another one right here as well. The difference between this style of commercial hose adapter and the Marias that I just made, this glass is heated and then a graphite mold is compressed over it to give you these really, really sharp, beautiful Marias. There's a gradient in size, and again, they're perfectly shaped and ideal for making glass hose attachments. But if you're not willing to spend $200 or $300 on a glass mold, graphite mold for glass, then you have to make them by hand like this for your hose adapters. So again, same function, just the professional method of making it uses a graphite mold, and the traditional method, you make Marias, cut off the Marias, and then attach this section, and there you go. So some of the older glassware that I inherited in this lab, you can definitely see that the hose adapter for that piece of glassware was made using this method rather than a graphite mold. But even if you don't want to make a hose adapter, making Marias, there are many, many applications in scientific glassware for putting this type of bump into glass tubing or glass rod. And as I mentioned, it is an absolutely critical skill to have, where you can rotate the glass and then compress it and then repeat and keep everything nice and uniform. Again, looking at this glass tubing, again, the glass tubing is still straight. There's no weird lumps or bumps. This Maria, which I kind of messed up but then fixed, is actually pretty good as far as being on center. And you will know your rate of progression based on how you make Marias. Your first ones will be terrible, you'll get frustrated, but then if you stick to it, you'll get better. Because trust me, like I said, my first attempt at Marias 3 years ago was comically bad.